Hello everyone, welcome to the Azure Developer Day Gwalior. This is Lakshit Pant from Azure Developer Community, and today I'm having Anika Tibrewala with me. She is a software development engineer at Visa, and she will be explaining you today on this Dev Day about how to develop with Azure Kubernetes services and what Azure Kubernetes looks like. You must have seen all those, multiple orchestration terms you must have heard of. So everything is gonna be covered by Anika. She'll be giving you how Hotstar and all these big examples of the TV streaming platforms scale their applications, and how these platforms can really help, these services can really help these platforms to build a robust solution. So over to you, Anika.
Sure. Thanks, Lakshit. Thanks for covering briefly about various things. But yes, let's get started. I'll quickly share my screen. All right.
Yeah, and
Just let
also
me exclusively.
yeah,
Yeah.
so the people's the it's so if you could address these, so they are also dropping some greetings in the comment section, right? So hi Aditya,
Yeah.
Shivans, Nikhil, Vishwajit, Manchi. So good evening everyone. So yeah, let's go. Over to you.
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. I can see all the hellos, good evenings coming in. Absolutely. And yeah, super excited for today. I'll be covering, more from a theoretical perspective. And if we do have time, we can dive in into, getting to know more into how it's done hands on. But yeah, let's get started with getting started with Azure Community Service. And yeah, I would love to know in the comment section if any of you is already familiar with Kubernetes, or you don't have any idea, like whatever it is, please share it across in the chat so that I can get to know about the audience specifics, and we can go forward as whatever like you all share. All right, I see a lot of folks in the comments. Great. So, all right, let's get started. Yes, before I get started, I'll quickly give a little introduction about myself. So, my name is Anika Tibrewala. I'm a software engineer at Visa. And yeah, I love all things tech, communities, organizing workshops, and, being part of hackathons and just trying to give back to the community in like various ways as much as I can. That's something that I absolutely love. And yeah, super excited for today. Uh, Great. I see that Himanshu is familiar. Great. All right. And there are a few folks familiar with AWS as well. All right. That's a great crowd. So, moving forward, I'll be covering today what exactly Kubernetes is. So, you are able to understand more around, you're able to understand more around Azure Kubernetes service if you have that base. And then we'll discuss more about deploying and managing applications with Kubernetes, more about troubleshooting as well as monitoring Kubernetes. That is also very important, right? And yes, we'll also have introduction to Azure Kubernetes Service. How is it exactly different from other, like service providers that we have? And yes, one of the most important things, best practices for securing and monitoring Azure Kubernetes Service clusters, because that is something that you will have to deal with once you get started, and like once you deploy your first application over there. All right, sounds good. All right, so let's get started, right? Like, what exactly is Kubernetes? So, would love to know from you in the comments what comes to your mind first when I say Kubernetes. Is it some ring that this logo that I've shown here, or what exactly is it? But just to give you a glimpse of it, Kubernetes, also known as KRS, is an open source platform that automates the deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. So if you, I think many of you might already know that Kubernetes were originally developed by Google, and it is now maintained by Cloud Native Computing Foundation, right? CNCF. So yeah, and yeah, one of the key features I think of Kubernetes is the ability of Kubernetes to orchestrate containers. We'll be talking about it a lot more in some while. But yeah, that is one of its key features, that it's able to orchestrate containers, and these are lightweight portable units that can run software applications. So by using Kubernetes, developers like you can easily deploy or scale and manage your containerized application in the production environment. So that that particular part becomes very very easy, and it's relatively a lot more easier to manage. So, yeah, like Kubernetes provides a number of useful features. So, there's feature like self-healing, service discovery, load balancing, and these all features all together are what makes it a powerful tool for managing large-scale distributed systems. So all in all, we can say that Kubernetes is an open source platform that automates the deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. So it's a container orchestration capabilities and other features are what it makes like makes it very very valuable as a tool for managing large scale and distributed systems. So although that's a little bit about Kubernetes, but it definitely, it definitely sounds a lot more complex, right? Like it doesn't set in the context, right? So let me give you an example that probably might help you to understand the concept better. So imagine that you have a new application, right? And you want to run it on multiple servers to handle a very large amount of traffic that you are getting. But you don't want to manually configure each server and, make sure, and you also want to make sure that they're all running the same version of the application. So this is where Kubernetes comes in. With Kubernetes, you can easily deploy your application on multiple servers, and it will automatically ensure that all the servers that there are running the same version of that particular application. So even if one of the server goes down, that will all be handled. Or even a simpler way to say it would be, let's say that you build a software application, right? You might break it up into lots of different parts. Those parts might need to like talk to each other and work together to make the application work. So Kubernetes basically helps to manage all these different parts. It makes sure that they're all running and they're communicating with each other properly. And Kubernetes is important because it definitely makes it easier for people to run their applications in the cloud. So instead of having you to worry about all the details, like details of managing servers or infrastructure, you can directly focus on writing the application code and let Kubernetes handle the rest of the things, right? So it also makes it easier for you to scale an application as it grows. So let's say that if you're having suddenly having a lot more users than expected on your application, Kubernetes will help you to create more copies of your application, to like handle that extra load that was suddenly increased. So it definitely helps to make the process smoother, more efficient, and also allows developers to focus on writing great code instead of worrying about a lot of infrastructure stuff, right? All right. I'll just check if there are any questions in the comment section. All right. We'll be covering this, like in the Q&A session afterwards, since this is not exactly related to Kubernetes at the moment. So yeah, like we'll cover it at the end. All right. So let's move forward. Uh, yeah. So I hope that now you have a more clearer understanding of what Kubernetes is and what it helps you to do, and yeah, like just to add a few more points to it. Kubernetes provides a lot of other features, like automatic self healing or self discovery and load balancing. So these are the features that basically set an edge, and those are the features that make Kubernetes itself a very powerful tool for managing large scale distributed systems, right? So you can automatically detect and fix problems. Like Kubernetes can automatically detect and fix problems on its own, and you definitely don't have to worry about monitoring it. So to sum this all up, Kubernetes is all in all a very powerful open source tool that helps organizations to manage, scale their and scale their application deployments by automating the deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. So it also provides with these features that I talked about, and like I think with these examples, I hope that you now have a clarity of what Kubernetes stand for. But now you might be wondering, right? Like we've discussed a lot about Kubernetes, but what exactly is container orchestration, right? So, container orchestration is basically the process of managing and coordinating multiple containers. So, these containers, like they're small, lightweight units that run software programs. So It is important because it allows organizations to again easily deploy, scale, and manage their applications in a production environment. So yeah, like without orchestration, managing multiple containers can be a lot more difficult and time consuming task. So for example, let's say if an organization has to manually configure each container, it can take a lot of time and effort to ensure that all the containers are running the same version of the application, right? And of course that they can communicate with each other. So container orchestration tools like Kubernetes automate these tasks that I mentioned, and they definitely make it a lot more easier to manage multiple containers. So they can automatically deploy containers across multiple servers and ensure that all the containers are running the same version of the application, so you don't have to worry about that. And of course handle all the tasks such as load balancing, self healing, and other features that I mentioned. And like this is what all that makes it a lot more easier for organizations to scale their applications and handle the large amount of traffic at the same time, right? So, in simpler words, we can say that container orchestration is like having a traffic controller, right, for your application containers. So, it makes sure that all the containers are running smoothly and are communicating with each other. So, you don't have to worry about it. It takes that particular thing out of it, right? So that's about container orchestration. Moving to containerization, right? What is containerization and why is it even important when we see it, like in today's development scenario? So containerization again is a method of packaging software applications and their dependencies into small self-contained units, and these units are called containers. So these containers are basically designed to be lightweight, portable, and they can basically run on any platform that supports container runtime, such as let's say Linux or Windows. So what is its benefit? So its benefit is that it allows applications to run consistently across different environments. So because the container includes all the necessary dependencies and libraries, it eliminates that works on my machine problem that you might have faced when you say that when you're working on the same project and your friend is saying it's working on my machine, why isn't it working on yours? This entire problem is now resolved. And like where an application might work on one machine but it's not working on some other due to some other different configurations or missing dependencies. These all things are taken care of if if you're talking about containerization. Another benefit that I can think of is that it allows for easy scaling and management of applications. So because containers are lightweight and portable, they can be easily deployed and run on multiple machines. So this makes it very easy to scale up or scale down the number of containers running on an application based on the needs of the system. And yeah, like to add on top of that, containers also enable more efficient use of resources. So that is something that is required in today's world, right? Like more efficient use of resources so that we can save on a lot of things. Of course, cost savings is another plus that a lot of organizations are looking forward to. So it definitely has a lot of cost savings. And as you know, like containers share the host operating system for its resources, right? So which basically means that the more efficient like they are more efficient than VMs or virtual machines, if you know about them. So the VMs that as you might know require a full operating system for each instance, whereas like when we are talking about containerization, right? So in containers, we are basically all the like host is having the operating system and that is being shared in all the resources. So definitely like that is what increases the efficiencies to the next scale here. So yeah, to summarize this, I would say that containerization is like a method of packaging software applications and their dependencies into small self-contained units, which are called containers. And the benefits of containerization include something like consistent application behavior across different environments, easy scaling, easy management, more efficient use of resources, and cost savings. So that is something that makes it an important aspect when we see it from a point of view of modern application development. So I'll be taking a pause here to see if there are any questions. All right, I don't see any questions coming in, so let's move forward. Let's get to know more about the key components of a Kubernetes cluster, right? Like, what exactly what are what exactly are the components involved when you talk about Kubernetes cluster, and what are their roles? Because that is very, very important when we are talking about Kubernetes. So a Kubernetes cluster, what exactly is it? Like it's like made up of various components that essentially work together to manage and orchestrate containerized applications. To just give you a gist of what are the different components I'm talking about. So there are there is etcd, there is API server, there is controller management, and there is kubelet. So I'll be giving you a brief introduction about all of these. So, etcd is basically, like a distributed key value store that is used to store configuration data for the cluster. So it's basically responsible for storing information about the state of the state of the cluster, right? Such as, current state of pods, services, and other objects in the cluster. Whereas API server is, like a component in again in the cluster that is responsible for exposing the Kubernetes API. So it is used to interact with the cluster, and it is the main point of entry for all commands and requests that are made to the cluster. Another component that we have here is controller manager. So the component is basically responsible for maintaining like the desired state of the cluster. So it watches the state of the cluster and makes decision on how to update it to like match to the desired state. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. So let me give you an example. Let's say that a pod goes down, right? So what controller manager will do is it will automatically create a new one to replace the old one. That is how it works, right? And yeah, kubelet. So kubelet is a component that runs on a node in the cluster, and it's basically responsible for community communicating with the API server, and the API server that we just talked about, and starting or stopping containers. So it basically ensures that containers are running as expected, and the reports this and basically kubelet reports the status of the node to controller manager. So this is how these components work. So Kubernetes cluster is made up of several components that work together to manage and orchestrate containerized applications. The components that we talked about is etcd, which is a distributed key value store responsible for storing the configuration data of the cluster. Then API server, which is responsible for exposing the Kubernetes API. Controller manager, which maintains the desired state of the cluster, and like that is done by monitoring and taking decisions accordingly. And kubelet, which runs on each node in the cluster, responsible for communicating with API server and starting or stopping containers, and of course reporting the status back to status of the node to controller manager. These are like the components and their roles. And of course I do understand that this sounds a lot more complex, right? Again, so let's try to understand this via an example again. So, a simple example that I can think of is, let's say that a Kubernetes cluster, you can think of it like a very big team of helpers that, work together to manage and organize your application. So, the components that I talked about, etcd, right, is like the team's memory. So, it stores the important information about the state of the team, and it makes sure that everyone is on the same page. Whereas API server is more like a team leader, right? It's like in charge of receiving requests and commands, and then passing them on to the right helper. Whereas controller management in this team setting can be thought of like the team's organizer. So it makes sure that everything is running smoothly, and if anything goes wrong, it basically fixes it automatically. The example that we saw, right? If a pod is down, it will basically replace it. Similarly, as a team organizer, this is what its role is, right? And I think kubelet can be envisioned like a helper. So that helper is in charge of a specific task. It makes sure that the containers are running as expected, and it reports back to the organizer, which in this case is controller manager. So, again, just to reiterate this, Kubernetes cluster is a big team of helpers that work together to, manage and organize your application. etcd is the team's memory, API server is the team's leader, controller manager is the team's organizer, and kubelet is the helper that is in charge of a specific task. So I hope that this example gives you a lot more clarity on different components when we are talking about Kubernetes cluster, and it helps you understand what are their like what is their importance or significance altogether, right? All right, I'll quickly see if there are any questions. Okay. All right, let's move forward. So, yeah, deploying and managing applications with Kubernetes, right? Like, let's get to know more about, uh, you know, like of course we know what Kubernetes is, what container orchestration is, but let's get to know more about the specifics when we are dealing with deployment or management of your application, when we are dealing with Kubernetes. So for that, first we need to understand different types of Kubernetes objects that exist, and like these Kubernetes objects are basically used to deploy and manage applications within a Kubernetes cluster. So getting to know them a lot in detail would definitely be helpful. So just yeah, like so different types of objects that we have that we have over here are like they all have different or specific purpose, I would say. So we have pods, we have application controllers, we have services, deployments, stateful sets, config maps, and secrets. These are different Kubernetes, different types of objects that we have, and I'll be going through them one by one again, and I'll be giving you examples as well to help you understand what their purpose is, how they are helpful. So yeah, let's go through them one by one. So pods, right? What is a pod? So pod is, you can think of it like a smallest and simplest object in Kubernetes. They are used to run one or more containers. So pods are used to host an application code and its dependencies, right? Whereas the second type of object that we have is replication controller. So these objects ensure that a specific number of replicas of a pod are running at all times. So if a pod goes down, the replication controller will automatically create a new one to replace it. We have services as another type of object. So like these objects provide a stable endpoint for a set of pods, right? It basically allows them to be accessed by other parts of the application. So services can be used to load balance the traffic between multiple pods, right? Like whenever you're getting a lot of traffic, it will basically help you to balance this traffic when you're having multiple pods. That is what services like that is what the purpose of services is. Moving to deployments, so deployment, like these objects, the deployments objects are used to manage the life cycle of an application, and of course its updates as well. So deployment is responsible for creating and updating pods as well as replication controllers and services. All right, and of course we have stateful sets. So stateful sets are basically similar to deployments that we just talked about, but they are used to manage stateful applications. So it basically requires a specific order of scaling, deployment, and then deletion as well. And yes, we have config maps and secrets. So config, like these particular types of objects are used to store configuration data and secrets. So you can think of it like passwords and tokens, that are used by the application. That is what is stored over here. So just to reiterate all these, Kubernetes objects are, like helpers that help you to deploy and manage your application. Pods are like helpers that will, run your application code, whereas replication controllers make sure that a specified number of pods are always running. Services, on the other hand, will make sure that other parts of your application can access these pods. Deployment, uh, it basically is able to access all these different pods that we have, and of course load balance the traffic that we have between different pods as well. Deployments, as we discussed just a couple of minutes ago, are basically help us to manage the life cycle of the application and its updates. And stateful sets are useful when we talk about management of stateful applications, right? And yes, the last one, config maps and sets, basically help us to store important data and secrets of the application that is in the question. So this is more about different types of objects that we have. All right. So yeah, we know about Kubernetes objects, we know about Kubernetes cluster, but how to scale, how to update your applications when we are talking about Kubernetes, right? So scaling and updating applications using Kubernetes is a relatively more simpler thing. So to scale an application, you can use Kubernetes object, which is called replica set. So a replica set essentially ensures that a certain number of replicas of your application are running all the times, as just we discussed in a few minutes ago, right? So if a number of replicas decreases, let's say your container crashed, right? Then the replica set will automatically create a new one for you and replace it, right? So to scale up or down the number of replicas, you simply need to update the replica set configuration, and that will do the work for you. To update an application, on the other hand, you can use the Kubernetes object that we just talked about, which is called deployment. So deployment, as we talked about, is responsible for managing the lifecycle of your application and its updates, right? So to update an application, you need to update the deployments configuration, and the deployment will automatically update the running containers for you. So in simpler words, we can say that scaling an application means having more helpers running the same task, right? And updating an application basically means more around giving the helpers with new instructions. So scaling can be done using replica set, whereas updating can be done using deployment. And uh, and yeah, like that's about scaling and updating. All right. And yes, another important concept when we are talking about Kubernetes is Kubernetes namespaces. So and how they can be used to isolate resources within a cluster. So yeah, what exactly is a namespace, right? In Kubernetes, a namespace is a way to organize and partition a cluster into smaller groups. So namespaces basically provide you with a way to logically separate resources, let's say such as pods or services, deployments within a cluster, right? So each Kubernetes namespace has its own set of resources, and resources in one namespace are isolated from resources in other namespace. So that is what namespace essentially does. But definitely namespaces are particularly useful when multiple teams or multiple applications are sharing the same Kubernetes structure. So then having that logical separation would be helpful, right? So yeah, by creating separate namespaces for each team or application, you can ensure that each or application has its own isolated set of resources, and that there are no naming conflicts between the resources as well. So just to give you an example, how we can do it in Kubernetes is, like, if let's say that you want to create a namespace in Kubernetes, you can use the kubectl command, the command line tool that we have. So you to create a namespace, let's say you can name it something like my namespace. So you'll run a command something like kubectl create namespace and my namespace, or the name of your namespace, whatever you want to name it, right? So once you've created a namespace, you can use it to isolate resources within your cluster. For example, you can deploy a set of pods and services to a specific namespace, right? And those resources will only be accessible within that particular namespace. So you can think of it, right, like a logical separation. So And of course, you can also limit access to a namespace by using Kubernetes RBAC, or also known as role-based access control. So this allows you to control who has the permission to view or modify resources within that particular namespace, right? So all in all, we can say that Kubernetes namespace provides you a way to logically separate or logically isolate resources within a cluster. And when is it useful? When multiple teams or applications are sharing the same cluster. So by using namespace, you can ensure that each team or application has its own isolated set of resources, and that there are no naming conflicts between the resources, right? Again, if it still sounds like a little bit more complex to you, let me give you an example. Imagine that you have a large container filled with different items, and you want to organize those items into smaller groups. So in Kubernetes, namespaces are like those smaller groups. They will allow you to separate your resources. So resources here are pods, services, and deployments into different groups so that they can be organized and managed more easily, right? And yeah, for example, we can also say that if you have multiple teams or applications using same Kubernetes cluster, you can create separate namespace for each team or each application. This way each team or application can have its own isolated set of resources, which are not accessible by other teams, right, or other applications. This definitely helps in preventing naming conflicts, and it basically also ensures that each team or each application has its own space to work in. And if you see it from an organization point of view, it definitely helps, right? Because there are a lot of teams, and definitely isolation is needed at some point in time. So yeah, and of course, like to conclude what namespaces is, namespaces, just to reiterate, are a way to organize and isolate resources within a Kubernetes cluster. They make it easier for you to manage and control access to those resources. So I hope that this gives you clarity on what namespaces are, why should we be using it if we are dealing with Kubernetes. Uh, but yeah, let's move forward. So that's a lot about Kubernetes, that's a lot about its components, the Kubernetes cluster. But yes, it's also very, very important to talk about monitoring and troubleshooting Kubernetes clusters, right? So you know monitoring and troubleshooting Kubernetes clusters is important because it allows you to detect problems and of course fix them before they actually affect your applications, right? So you don't want your application to crash, and then after some time you're checking it as to why this thing has entirely happened. You definitely do want to prevent it before it actually happens, right? So by monitoring your cluster, you can see how your resources are performing, identify potential issues, and take a corrective action before they become critical. So there are different types of Kubernetes logs that will help you to troubleshoot issues within your cluster. So I'll give you an overview as to different types of logs that there are. So there are pod logs, there are node logs, there are event logs, and cluster level logs. These different types of logs are like used to understand and of course troubleshoot Kubernetes clusters. Just to give a little bit more info around what these logs stand for. So pod logs, like as it sounds like, these logs contain output of containers running inside a pod. So you can use these logs to see what your application is doing, or let's say that you want to diagnose issues with your application as well. Whereas node logs are the logs that will contain information about status of the nodes in your cluster, right? So you can use these logs to troubleshoot issues within the nodes, such as low memory or high CPU usage. Logs, on the other hand, are the logs that contain information about events that occur in the cluster, such as the creation or deletion of resources. So you can use these logs to see what changes have been made to your cluster and to identify the cause of a problem. And of course, cluster level logs. So these logs contain information about the status of the cluster as a whole, such as status of the control plane components like API server, etcd, and kubelet that we talked about, right? So these are the logs that are a lot more helpful. So if you want to access these logs, you can use the kubectl command line tools. For example, you can use the kubectl logs command to access the logs for a specific pod, or use kubectl describe command to access the logs of a specific node. So that's about different types of logs that we have. But yes, monitoring and troubleshooting Kubernetes clusters is important to detect and fix the problems that before they actually reach your applications and crash them, right? So there are different types of logs in Kubernetes, as we talked about. Just to reiterate: pod logs, node logs, event logs, and cluster level logs. And you can access all of them by the kubectl command line. All right. So that is a lot more about logs. But yeah, like what are the common troubleshooting scenarios that actually occur, right? You may encounter some of these, like repetitive troubleshooting things coming up with a Kubernetes cluster. So just to give you a few examples, so you might see that pods are not starting, right? So if a pod is not starting, the first thing that you should be checking is the event logs that I just talked about. So these logs will contain information about why the pod is not starting, such as, an error with the container image or the lack of the resources. Whereas if a pod is crashing, right, then you should check the pod logs for error messages. So logs will contain information about what caused the pod to crash, and they will help you to diagnose the issue. And of course, if you're having some networking issues, so let's say that if pods are not able to communicate with each other or with external services that you might be using, you should check the status of the network within the cluster, right? So this may include checking your network configuration, firewall rules, or any other routes that might be used in this particular scenario. And yeah, another thing that occurs a lot is, scaling issues. So let's say that if you're experiencing issues with scaling your application, you should definitely check the usage of your pods and nodes. So if the pods or nodes that are running out of resources, like if they are running out of resources, then you may need to adjust the resource limits or add more nodes to the cluster. And uh, and yeah, if there are cluster level issues, so if you're having issues with control plane components like API server, etcd, kubelet, then you should check the cluster level logs. So these logs will contain information about status of these components, and that will help you to diagnose the issue to the point. So to resolve these issues, you can again use kubectl command line to access logs and perform actions such as scaling, modifying the resource limits, debugging of different components. Also, you can use something known as Kubernetes dashboards and monitoring tools to get more insights about the state of your cluster and take actions based on that. So all in all, using the right tool to access the right logs and gather the information is what will help you, and then of course take the appropriate action to resolve the problem. That is what will help you to avoid any of such errors. All right, so that's a lot about Kubernetes, right? But what about Azure Kubernetes Service, right? So I think now you have a lot more understanding of what Kubernetes is, why is it even used, different components, and troubleshooting, monitoring, all these practices, right? So now we can discuss about Azure Kubernetes Service. So Azure Kubernetes Service, or AKS, is a fully managed Kubernetes service provided by Microsoft Azure. So it allows you to deploy, scale, and manage containerized applications more easily on Azure Cloud Platform. One of the key benefits of using AKS or Azure Kubernetes Service is that it is a fully managed service. Which basically means that Microsoft takes care of underlying infrastructure, including the nodes that run on your containers, the networking, and the storage. This allows you to focus on deploying and managing your applications rather than worrying about the underlying infrastructure. So AKS also offers a lot of features and integrations that definitely make it particularly well suited for deploying and managing containerized applications on Azure. So for example, it integrates Azure Active Directory for authentication and authorization, and it also supports integration with Azure DevOps for continuous integration and continuous deployment CI/CD pipelines. So compared to other Kubernetes offerings in Azure, such as Azure Container Service (ACS) or Azure Kubernetes Service Engine (AKSE), Azure Kubernetes Service is generally considered to be the most fully featured and easy to use Kubernetes offering. So it is also the only Kubernetes service in Azure that is fully managed, which basically means that you don't have to worry about managing the underlying infrastructure. So, all in all, we can say that Azure Kubernetes Service is a very powerful and fully managed Kubernetes service that will allow you to not only deploy but also manage containerized applications a lot more easily on a cloud platform, right? Its additional features are there for are a great choice for organizations looking to deploy and manage containerized applications. Now, that is a little bit about Azure Community Service, but how is it different, right? So, just to give you an example, let's say that you are an organization and you want to deploy a containerized application on Azure. So, you have two options. You can either use a self managed Kubernetes cluster, such as Azure Kubernetes Service Engine, or you can use fully managed Kubernetes service, also known as Azure Kubernetes Service, right? So if you choose to use self-managed Kubernetes cluster, you'll need to manage the underlying infrastructure yourself. This means that you'll need to provision and manage the nodes that run your containers, as well as the networking and storage infrastructure. You'll also need to ensure that your Kubernetes cluster is secure, up to date, and highly available. On the other hand, if you choose to go with fully managed Kubernetes service like Azure Kubernetes Service, Microsoft takes care of all these tasks for you. So you don't need to worry about managing the underlying infrastructure, as Microsoft takes care of provisioning and managing the nodes, networking, and storage for you. You also don't need to keep worrying about your Kubernetes cluster, if your Kubernetes cluster is secure, or if it is up to date, or highly available or something, because these all things are taken care of for you now. And of course, just to add on, AKS also offers a number of additional features. So, like integrations that will make it particularly well suited for deploying and managing containerized applications on Azure. For example, Azure Kubernetes Service integrates with Azure Active Directory for authentication. I just talked about that. That is a huge plus, right? And it also supports integration with Azure DevOps for CI/CD pipelines. These all features are definitely something that give an edge to Azure Kubernetes Service as a whole. And yeah, all in all, I would say the difference between the Azure Kubernetes Service and the other Kubernetes service in like is that Azure Kubernetes Service is a fully managed service, and Microsoft, again, as I mentioned, is taking care of the underlying infrastructure and other things for you, and you're also getting a lot of additional features that definitely helps you to just focus on deploying and managing your applications rather than worrying about the underlying infrastructure. All right. So, just to give you, like, since we are running out of time, I won't be going ahead with the hands-on demonstration. But just to give you a gist of how you can deploy and manage applications on an Azure Kubernetes, on a Azure Kubernetes service cluster, what you can do is, first step would be to create an Azure Kubernetes service cluster. So first step is you'll create this cluster in Azure portal. So you might know, right? If you just search Microsoft Azure portal, you'll land to this place wherein you have this website, and you'll have different components. So over there, if you just search for Azure Community Service Cluster, you can just click on it and then create a cluster. This might involve selecting a lot of different desired configuration options, such as number of nodes, the node size, or the networking options. So you can add in the values whatever as desired. And then, of course, deploying an application is the second step. So once your cluster is set up and it's running, the next step is to deploy your containerized application to the cluster. So this can be done by using Kubernetes deployment manifests, which describe the desired state of your application. The third step would be to manage the application. So once your application is deployed, you can manage it using Kubernetes commands or through Azure portal, whichever is, whichever works better for you. So this includes tasks such as, scaling the application up or down, rolling out the updates to the application, and of course monitoring the application's performance. The next step would be configuring networking and like storage for your cluster. So in order to in order for your application to be actually accessible to the users, you definitely do need to configure networking storage options over here. So again, Azure Community Service integrates with Azure services such as load balancer and like Azure storage to make this process easier. Next step and the final step, and of course I think one of the most important steps as well, is secure the application. So it's very important to ensure that your application is secure. So you can use Azure Active Directory for authentication and authorization, and that you can also configure network security groups to control the access to your application. So overall, deploying and managing applications in Azure Kubernetes Service involves, as we talked about, creating a cluster, deploying your application, managing the application using Kubernetes commands, and or using Azure portal, of course, and configuring networking and storage, securing the application as well. Right? These are the steps that are involved that I talked about, and Azure Kubernetes Service definitely makes the process easier, by providing fully managed Kubernetes service that takes care of the underlying infrastructure, that is like the huge players that I've been talking about multiple times. So yeah, that's about the process. And just to quickly cover the Azure Community Service, the manage identities part, right? What exactly it is, why is it useful? The manage identities in Azure are a way to authenticate and authorize access to Azure services without having to, manage and store the credentials manually. So Azure Community Service managed entities are specifically used to authenticate and authorize access. Now, that is a very important thing, right? So, just to give you an example, let's say that you have an application running on Azure Kubernetes Service Cluster that needs to access an Azure Key Vault to retrieve a secret. So, rather than storing credentials for Key Vault in the application code, which definitely could be a security risk, you can use AKS managed identity to authenticate and authorize access to Key Vault, right? So to set this up, you would first create an Azure Key Vault, and then of course grant the AKS managed identity access to Key Vault. This can be done by creating an access policy for managed identity in Key Vault. Definitely allows the managed identity to perform certain operations such as retrieving secrets, and then followed by it in your application code, which is running on AKS cluster, you would use Azure SDK or a Kubernetes secret to retrieve the AKS managed identity credentials, right? So these credentials are automatically rotated and managed by Azure. You don't need to worry about managing or storing them either. And yeah, finally you can use Azure Community Service, like AKS managed identity credentials to authenticate and authorize access to Azure Key Vault, so allowing your application to retrieve the secret securely without storing the credentials in the application code itself. So all in all, of course, managed entities provide a secure and easy way to authenticate and authorize access to Azure services from applications running on Azure Kubernetes Service Cluster. And by using managed identities, you can definitely avoid, managing and storing credentials on your application itself. That definitely reduces the risk of security breaches by a huge limit, right? So that's about managed entities. Let's talk about the best practices for securing the Azure Community Service clusters, and of course how you can use Azure policy and Azure Monitor for monitoring purposes. So, and yeah, like just to reiterate, Azure Kubernetes Service Clusters are a powerful tool for running your applications in the cloud, but definitely it is very, very important to take steps to ensure that they are secure and performing optimally. So, like for securing, when we're talking about securing your AKS cluster, it's important to use network security groups to control inbound and outbound traffic in your cluster, right? This definitely helps to prevent unauthorized access to your cluster. And you should also use, as we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, role based access control or RBAC to control access to your cluster resources. That definitely ensures that only authorized users have access to your resources. Another important aspect of security with AKS cluster is like AAD or Azure Active Directory that you can use for authentication and authorization. That will provide like an additional layer of security, for your cluster. And you should also use Kubernetes secrets to store any sensitive information such as API keys or passwords. That again will like prevent sensitive data from being exposed in plain text. Finally, it's also important to regularly apply security updates and patches to your AKS cluster. So again, how would this help is that it would keep your cluster up to date with the latest security fixes. When we are talking about monitoring your Kubernetes service cluster, so monitoring your cluster helps you to identify issues that that before they actually become major problems for you. So you should monitor the health and performance of your Kubernetes cluster, and you can use metrics and logs for that. So we talked about logs, right? So you should also monitor application performance using tools such as Azure Application Insights. So Azure Monitor for AKS is another powerful tool for gaining insights into performance and availability for AKS cluster. It again provides pre-configured dashboards and alerts for common AKS clusters, as like metrics and events. So you can also use something known as Azure Log Analytics that will help you to collect and analyze the log data from the Azure Kubernetes Service Cluster. So these are just like some of the best practices that you can follow for securing and monitoring your AKS cluster, and these are the things that will ensure that your application is running smoothly, and of course your data is 100% secure, right? Again, the very last topic that we can discuss for today is Azure policy and Azure monitor. So Azure policy basically lets you create rules that make sure that your cluster is following important security and compliance rules. So just to give you an example, let's say that in your application, you might create a rule that says that all data being sent to different parts of your cluster has to be secure. So Azure policy can help you make sure that all the parts of your cluster are following that particular rule. On the other hand, if we talk about uh, Azure Monitor. So it's another tool that can help you to keep an eye on your Azure AKS cluster. So it lets you to see a lot of different information about how your cluster is doing, or like how much memory is being used, or how many containers are running. So if something goes wrong, you can just set up alerts that will tell you right away that right away, and you can use them to fix the problem before it gets worse. So all in all, Azure Policy and Azure Monitor are, both really helpful tools that can help you make sure your Azure Kubernetes Service Cluster is working on the way and it's working as it is supposed to, right? That is definitely a lot more useful. So that's all about Azure Kubernetes Service from my end. Of course, you can definitely connect with me if you have any doubts, right? Like you can definitely connect with me. We can chat further. We can get to know more about like any doubts that you might be having. We can discuss further. But yeah, that's all from my end. I'll quickly check what all questions that we have in the comment section. All right. So there is this question from Himanshu Rai. Since Kubernetes is a Google engine, how Microsoft uses it? Like they do render the data with Google, or is it something else? So as I talked about, right, Kubernetes is actually an open source project, originally developed by Google, but now it is managed by CNCF, or Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So CNCF is a vendor neutral organization that supports the development of cloud native technologies. As a result, both Google and Microsoft as you know, like as well as many other cloud providers, offer their own managed Kubernetes service, such as GKE or AKS, respectively. So these allow customers to deploy and manage Kubernetes clusters on their respective cloud platforms. Definitely, Microsoft has made significant contributions to Kubernetes project, including developing the Kubernetes dashboard and virtual kubelet project, just to add on. In addition to AKS, Microsoft also offers other Kubernetes related services such as Azure container instances, which allows customers to deploy containers directly to Azure without having to manage Kubernetes clusters. And yeah, so to answer your question, I would say that Microsoft does not render data with Google when it comes to Kubernetes. Instead, they offer their own managed Kubernetes service that is known as AKS and other Kubernetes related services on their platform itself. I hope that answers your question. All right. Another question that we have from Himanshu is that how is a Google Kubernetes Engine GKE different from Azure Kubernetes Service AKS? So Google Kubernetes Engine GKE and AKS both are managed Kubernetes services offered by GCP, that is Google Cloud Platform, and a Microsoft Azure, respectively. While they share a lot of similarities in like in functionality and features, there are a few differences that I think exist between the two. The first one is platform integration. So GKE is tightly integrated with Google Cloud Platform, which means it is easier to use GCP services, such as you might want to use Stackdriver for logging and monitoring. And Azure or Google Cloud Storage for persistent data storage. Similarly, in AKS, it's tightly integrated with Azure, which makes it easier to use Azure services such as Azure Active Directory that we talked about, identity and access management, or Azure Monitor for monitoring. Then, of course, they definitely have a lot more differences when it comes to pricing and billing. Another important aspect is security. So again, like both GK and AKS offer similar security features as node level security, I would say, as well as role based access control. But yes, GK has an additional security feature such as binary authorization for container image validation, whereas we have the active directory feature on AKS, right? And yeah, we have a cluster auto scaling as well. So both of them, I think both of them support the cluster auto scaling. And yeah, I think this is all in all, in my opinion, what is the difference. But yes, there are a lot of similarities. I think what makes it or breaks it for you when you are thinking or you are making a informed decision is that what sort of services that you want to use. So if you want to use services that Azure provides, they are tightly integrated with like Azure Kubernetes service, then of course you would definitely want to prefer that. So, all right, I will check what else, what all questions that we received. All right, so I think Himanshu, your question I have answered. This was it's the same as we see at 7:15, and let me see. All right, that we have one more question. So we have all right, yeah. So this question says, how is it helpful for Azure data engineer? Uh, I've been asked about it in some interviews. So as an Azure data engineer, knowledge and experience with Kubernetes, especially with Azure Kubernetes service, can definitely be helpful. So again, getting to know all these concepts is definitely something that you might want to know, because this is what is is something like a valuable asset for data engineers, right? It can help you not only just in terms of knowledge but hands-on, build you scalable, efficient, and flexible data engineering pipelines on the Azure platform. So I definitely think that that is what helps you. All right, I'll check of any other questions. So, all right. So yeah, there is one more question from Himanshu that says, if logs already helped us detecting problems, what is the use of cloud monitor, right? So while logs are an important source of information for detecting problems in a cloud-based environment, they can be, like it can be difficult to manage and analyze when you are dealing with a high scale, right? So this is where cloud monitoring services come into picture. So these services can help you aggregate and analyze and visualize the data on the go from multiple sources, making it easier for you to identify and troubleshoot issues in your cloud infrastructure. So they can help you with real-time alerts and notifications, right, when certain conditions are met. And that is definitely very, very important, again, when we are dealing with such a high scale. In addition to logs, cloud monitoring services also collect metrics, traces, and other types of data from your cloud resources that definitely help you to provide more comprehensive view of your environment, helping you to identify performance bottlenecks or resource utilization issues, and of course any other potential problems that might occur. So all in all, I would say that Cloud Monitor can help you proactively detect and troubleshoot issues in your infrastructure. It will also help you to in a greater way optimize your resource utilization and ensure that the reliability and performance of your cloud-based applications and services are all good. All right. How Kubernetes is different from other platforms. So um, that like I think so uh, I think like just if I'm just to talk about Kubernetes, I can say that there are a lot of factors that come into picture when we are talking about different container orchestration platforms, be it portability, scalability, flexibility, or automation, or like as well as community. That is, yeah, that is something that personally drove me into Kubernetes, into learning Kubernetes, right? So these are different things that come into picture, and I truly believe that Kubernetes is a powerful and flexible platform for managing containerized workloads, or be it portability, scalability, and automation feature set that like set it apart from other platforms. Absolutely, its popularity and widespread adoption also means that it has a vibrant ecosystem of tools and resources, and that's what, in my opinion, makes it a strong choice for many organizations looking to deploy and manage the containerized workloads. All right. I hope that answers your question, Dave. I think that's all the questions that we have in the chat. And yes, you can connect with me, or you can, scan this particular QR code that I have, and yeah, connect with me on these platforms. All right. So we have another question. Um, can we run Windows Server containers on Azure Kubernetes servers, right? All right. So yeah, I think it's possible to run Windows Server containers on Azure Kubernetes Service AKS. So it supports running both Linux and Windows Server containers in the same cluster. So it allows you to deploy and manage like a variety of containerized workloads on your platform. To run Windows Server containers on your AKS, you just need to ensure that your cluster is configured to support Windows Server containers. So this might involve you creating a cluster with nodes that are running on, let's say Windows Server 2019, or installing the necessary container runtime such as, Docker or Containeroid, and enabling the necessary Kubernetes features. So yeah, just keep in mind that Kubernetes or that Windows Server containers have different resource requirements and limitations, of course, compared to Linux containers. So you may need to adjust your cluster's resource and allocation, and of course scaling policies accordingly. Yes, additionally, some Kubernetes features may or may not be fully supported in Windows Server containers. So you should definitely review the AKS documentation to ensure that application is compatible with Windows Server platform. And yeah, I think that's all about it. Would love to. Uh, I think that's all the questions that we have, and I think we can also share. So this particular link that I shared in the chat, that is a Microsoft Learn module. So if you are planning to just get started, you can just go to this particular link and get started with your Azure Kubernetes service journey altogether. They have really nicely documented all these steps, and it will help you to get started with things, and yeah, probably build your applications over there as well. So that's all from my end. Thank you so much. I think we cannot hear you, Lakshit. You're on
Yeah,
mute.
I am really sorry. I was on mute. I'm really sorry for that. And thank you for again. Thank you for joining us today for this insightful session on Kubernetes. And there are multiple things that you have taught, and thank you for answering all those questions, addressing all those questions. I hope everyone got the answers of their question, guys. If you have any doubts or any queries still left with with for Anika, just please let us know in the comment section. Till then, I do have one more thing. If you guys, so as this is about Kubernetes, right? So there is this called killer coda. If you want to killer shell, if you want to explore this, if you want to explore Kubernetes more, you can just try this CCAT tool simulator, which will help you create a Kubernetes environment. This is some for some terms it is free of cost. Okay, you can just explore the killer shell. There you can just play with some basic commands. There you can just CK commands. You can just practice over there. This is for specifically for Kubernetes, right? If you want to explore Kubernetes, then you can just try this simulator and try some. There are some, so if you are planning for CCAT exam, right, then you do have some sandboxes over there and practice questions over there. Those CCAT exam is definitely one of the toughest exam and present in the Microsoft Kubernetes list of certifications. So, but you should try definitely. Yeah, lots of thank yous are coming for Anika. So definitely thank you, Anika, for joining us for this session. I really appreciate. And guys, we have already shared her profile, so you should check it out on the her LinkedIn. She is very active on the community. And yes, thank you everyone, and thank you Anika for joining in. Now we will be starting with our next session in couple of minutes at Divisome. Until then, I'm gonna share you some couple of things, guys, regarding the Azure Developer Community. So if you want to explore, if you want to contribute to the Azure Developer Community in some manner, this is the best way to get started. So I'll just quickly share with you. Give me a second. I have this app. Okay. Yes. So guys, just a second. So yeah, now I was talking about this. So if you want to explore, if you want to try about if you want to explore the Azure Developer Community, if you want to really collaborate, if you want to really work with the Microsoft level entities, definitely you should check out our community. There is the so I do not need to explain the community much more. I hope you guys are already aware of the community, like what we do, how we help, and so these are some numbers that we have facilitated. Definitely, it's a old number now. This number has been increased to 500 plus meetups and hackathons and 150 plus 150,000 people engagements, and there has been a gradually increase in the number of knowledge sessions as we have done over 20k plus number knowledge session till here. Cities remain the same. We have expanded to 130 plus cities. Now the question comes how you can be a part of the community. That so there are three things that you can be really a part of. First is Azure Developer Community blog. So if you will see, there is this page called azdev.reskill.com. That is the official website of the Azure Developer Community, right? So if you will see right over here, there is the section called blogs. So you can just go to this blog section. You will see there are a couple of blogs that has been written by all these, some of the Azure developer leads, some of the Azure enthusiasts like you. So definitely you can also publish your blogs here as well, right? So you will see that can be a great advantage for you because this Microsoft logo is there, and you can show it to your profile. You can showcase your blogs right over here. This will be a really good plus for you if you will write a blog around Azure. Just it's not mandatory wherever you like blog. It could be Hashnode, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Medium. You can choose. It could be your personal website. It could be anything where you want to write your blog. It's just that you just need to share the blog link with us. We will post that blog link. We will redirect the blog link. We will publish the blog link right over here on this website. That will help you out to get a greater audience, because we will be helping you to float your blogs in our community of Discord server. Now if I'm talking about Discord, I'll quickly share the Discord server link over here. So that is http. Just give me a second. Yeah, now I'm getting bit.ly is at Discord. So here is the link, guys, for joining the Discord server. You can just check out this link to in order to join the Discord server. And there you will find 10,000 people approximately who are very active in the Discord server. We do organize regular quizzes and multiple things over there. You can be a part of those quiz. You can facilitate. You can win some really cool Microsoft merchandise. some new procurements are being in the process, so you can be the part of this amazing community. We have lots of benefits. You can get all the Microsoft Azure certifications for free. And when I say Azure certification for free, why I'm saying this, because for students, if you have your college ID, like at the rate ITM, or maybe if you have your college IDs, email IDs, then you can get every certification for free. All you need to do is go to Microsoft Azure student portal, and you need to register for yourself as a student. Also, I will really encourage you guys to sign up for Azure GitHub, no, not Azure, GitHub Student Developer Pack. So this is the this you can avail this developer pack by enrolling by you know uh, using your college IDs, or if your college is not enrolled in the GitHub Developer Student Pack, or your college is not a part of GitHub Developer Student Program or college university program, that what you can do is you can use your own personal Gmail ID, and then you can upload your ID card. Suppose if you guys have any ID card with you, your ITM college ID card with you, you can just upload that as a proof that validates that you are a student, right? So then you can just get this GitHub student developer pack. There are a bunch of benefits right over here. You can just get all these benefits. Like if I'll just categorize, you can get Namecheap subscription for free. So you will get SSL STTPS certified hosting services for free for a year, right? You can get JetBrains for free. You can get Microsoft Azure credits that will be of worth $100. So you can, if you want to explore Microsoft Azure, you can definitely get these. You can get all these Microsoft Azure credits worth rupees $100 for free. There you can use for multiple things. You can explore DigitalOcean, Namecheap.com, GitHub, educative.io. If you want to explore the really great courses of educative.io, you can get that as well for free. So there are a bunch of things that I can see, and there are some algo expert. Front-end master is one of the most popular course among the students for the front-end skills, exactly, right? So you can just explore the front-end masters, expert.io, terminus. So if you want to explore the terminal experience, so you can just go. So there are a bunch of things. You can get Canva, Figma, Streamlit, and all these things for free, right? Replit.io 1 month. So these are the tools that you get for free through the GitHub Student Developer Pack. You should definitely sign up for the GitHub Developer Student Pack and avail all the benefits that are available for you for free. And then there is this called Azure CLX portal. If I just wanted to show you this Azure CLX, then so this is an exam ready training portal that has been curated by Microsoft alongside Spectra Systems, right? So here you can pick any jam session that you want to be a part of, right? You can select any jam session that you want to be a part of, and then what you can do is you can attend those jam sessions. Like what does these jam sessions mean? So these jam sessions are basically from industry experts, global industry experts, right? If I'll just show you this up. So there is one session on 1st of July by some of the on Azure administrator data fundamentals. So all these courses are for free. You can just get these all the certification that was mentioned overhead. You can get all these certification for free. Here are the speakers who conduct multiple webinars, like these are all MCTs or Microsoft certified trainers or Microsoft valuable professionals who are there teaching you what it looks like to explore all these services with hands-on training, right? So you not need to pay anything for free. Not need to pay anything for this uh, you know the portal. You all you need to do is just sign up and get started. And the best part, I really feel about this is you get the practice exams, right? So why I'm saying practice exams? So before appearing into a real world exam, right? A real world as your certification exam, definitely should try a practice certification exam where you are, you know, uh, just practicing your skills, like how much you are efficient. Are you the right, is it the right time to, explore the certification or not? And there are multiple things, right? So you should definitely try this out, the certification portal that has been given here for you all. Then there are some couple of things, that is Microsoft Azure Community. So you should Microsoft Azure Community that has been recently launched by Microsoft, that is tech community. So you can just, this is 24 into 7 available. You can reach out to the support community where Microsoft people will be helping you out in your query in order to, if you want to explore the certification, if you want to explore the any Microsoft Azure track, you can definitely explore any track that that you find insightful, right? That should I say phrase this, and you can then there is this called Microsoft Learn Student. If you will see, okay, maybe I can just show you this up. Yeah, so here is the certification portal that you must explore, where you can just try the pathway that might be suitable for you. If you want to, if you have a need interest in data science, you can just go to the data science field. If you have a keen interest in a data administrator, you can just go on a data security, data administrator, data architect, or cloud architect. So where you want to go, you can just explore all these. So you can explore by the role that you want, right? So there are a bunch of roles that has been already explained. So this is the best website that you can explore if you want to take it as a business user or as an app maker, as a security engineer, as a solution architect. So how you want to explore a role, which role defines your interest, right? You can explore by your interest, you can explore by the certification, right? So this is the best part about the Microsoft. Everything is documented. You get everything in such a very smooth manner, in such a beginner friendly manner, that everything is for free. Now I get this question very frequently. You have everything with you, like most of you guys are using Windows systems for on your laptop, and there is this basic prerequisite for most of the Microsoft exam, that is Linux. Now how to get this Linux, and there are multiple tools like Fedora, and there are some couple of tools like I just forgot. Cleopatra is the tool. You just install Cleopatra, and that will install the Ubuntu for you. And there are some couple of other tools as well. But for whom, for those people whose system is not that compatible to run two OS at the same time, right? They can't dual boot their systems. Like they can't run. So due to some data issues, due to some storage issues, they can't install the Linux. So there again, I have very best solution for you. I'll quickly show you up. Yeah, here it is. So there something called WS. Okay, WSL. So this is the development environment that you can, for the Unix, for if you want to explore Linux, if you want to explore a Linux environment, you can definitely, you should try this out. Because why I'm saying this, if you will see this terminal icon over here, this is the WSL thing that I was talking about. If you will see, this is the terminal where I can run, Ubuntu. So it is preparing the environment for me, right? It is preparing the environment. I can open any, I can open PowerShell, I can use Azure Cloud Shell, I can use whatever images that you can run on this WSL, right? Images that you can run on this WSL, like Parrot OS, Kali Linux OS, Kali, and there are some couple of more images or versions of Linux that you can run using the WSL that Microsoft provides you, that Windows offers you. Most of you are very unaware about that. That's why I'm telling you again about the. So if you will see, maybe I can try this. Okay. Okay, I need to sign in. Okay, I have some sign in issues. Okay, just give me a second. Maybe I need to sign into this. Okay, just give me a second. I'm just signing to the account. So I'll just quickly show you how we can sign in and run the, you know, so I'll just paste the code right over here. Yeah, maybe now if I'll just, so the WSL, I am having some issues with this. Okay, okay. Yes, because I'm having some issues with my sign-in process. I'll just try to re-log in and again. Okay, just give me a second. Maybe I can use this account to sign in. Yes. Okay. Just pro. Till then, what you guys can do until I'm setting up the environment, what you guys can do, you can explore the this link that I have already shared with you guys, so that because I'm yeah. Now, okay, now if I'll just try to relaunch, okay, I'll just try to close this and I'll try to close all. I'll try to relaunch the terminal again. Exited code 123. Okay. So this is what I was talking about. Like you can just explore all these multiple things over here. You can add some new profiles if you want to explore. So there are multiple new profiles that this WSL provides. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out why I'm having a sign-in issue. Open JSON file. Okay, just give me a second. I'm trying to decode this thing. Okay. Okay, I got this. Maybe this is due to the. Again, this is some VS Code is having some problem. Okay, that is why. So my VS Code is also VS Code is having some problem. That's why it is not letting me to log in to my Windows terminal. Otherwise, you can just simply log in to your terminal. You can apply the basic commands right over here, and you can just try the. You can try using Ubuntu. You can try using Azure Cloud Shell or whatnot, right? So this is totally up to your choice. Okay. So yeah, it gave me another code. Mm, okay, yeah, I might be facing some internet issue. Okay, so this is the so if I'll just directly show you the command prompt CMD. Okay, there you can just like you can use all the commands that you want like uh, this is like I just initialize the Git repository. Then I can just you can just do multiple things as the same thing that you do with your command prompt. You can just do the same thing at the WSL thing. I'm facing some sign in issues. Otherwise, it would have worked very smoothly. This works very smooth on my system. And why I'm saying this because I'm using i5 seventh generation or something like this. And if it is running on my system, then it can run on any system that I can suggest, right? So this is the basic thing that I could ensure you guys to explore. That is the WSL part. And by this documentation, you will definitely get a lot of things to explore. Now, if anyone having any questions regarding this, the WSL thing or anything, just let me know in the comment section, and I'll be very happy to take up your doubts. Until then, what I can do is just give me a second. Yeah, and just give me a second. I can give you the link to your attendance also, because that is also very much important for you guys. Just give me a second. I'm just checking the attendance form that I can provide you. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, so I was telling about this guy, so I'm really sorry. So there is this basic installment that you guys need to follow, right? There are some commands that you need to run on your command prompt. Like, you first of all, you need to go to your PowerShell, or you can use your Windows command prompt, and you have to put WSL install command. Then you will see something like, you can use PowerShell, Windows PowerShell. You can put this command, and then you will see, just you can just put some sudo commands and PowerShell commands. It will ask you for permissions. You need to go to the root directory and then create a username, upgrade patches. You have to use the super admin users using a sudo apt update command. You can be the super admin users, and you can install all the plugins that it needs to be. And likewise, as you can see, right now I'm having some username issues. Otherwise, I could have shown you guys, and I'm not sure why it is taking so much time to fix these. Again, the same thing is coming. Maybe I can try with Azure Cloud Cell. Okay. Yes. Now let me try login in again. Okay. Continue. Yeah, it's done. It's done, guys. If you will see now, so I'm okay. Now, so it is, yeah, now so this is how simply you can just install a WSL and run all the Linux commands that you want to prefer, run all the Ubuntu Cloud Shell Power. So there are multiple things that you can do now. You can just prepare for your Linux commands. You can just explore the networking part. You can explore multiple things. If anyone has any question, just let me know. And yeah, I remember. Yeah, Vishal, I do remember your Google form. Let me share it with you guys. Just give me a second. I'm sharing. Let me first stop sharing my screen. And link will be valid for next 5 minutes. So, or what you need to, all you need to do is just log into your account. Okay, just fill the Google form, and that is all what you need to perform to fill your attendance. So make sure you fill your attendance, and if anyone has any doubt, any query regarding the first session, or maybe if you have any query regarding the Kubernetes or the WSL environment or the Linux part or the Azure part, you can just let me know. I can just help you with this for sure. Yes. So uh, here's the link that you can just perform, and I do have some crazy cool thing for you. And just give me a second, if we can play some Slido concepts. Just make sure you fill the Google form. This will give you the certificate. This will help you to get your attendance mark for today's session. So guys, I'm having a quiz for today's session. We are having a quiz, right? So what I will do is I'll quickly share my screen, and you need to perform. You need to join this quiz right now, and just let me reshare my screen so that you all can join today's quiz. Yeah, this is how you can simply, I hope my screen is visible to you all. So if I'll present, yeah. So just all you need to do is just scan the environment, just use this code, or maybe you can okay. So guys, just scan this QR code, or you can just type slido.com and paste this code over there. What you can do, just type slido.com and paste this code over there. Type slido.com and paste this code over there, 4001741, so that I can see how many people are joining over here. Let's see audience and Q&A. Let's see how many people have joined already. So what you need to do, just I'm sharing the this part again. Abhishek has joined, Shakshi has joined, Anshika has joined. Just 4 people has joined out of 66 folks. Guys, please join fast. Slido.com, and you need to put this code over there. So guys, quickly, I will encourage you guys quickly join fast so that we can start the quiz. It has some basic cloud computing questions, and it has some fun questions as well. So it will be very easy for you to explore and to answer these questions. So don't get worried about these questions. All you need to do is either to scan this QR code, or to go to slido.com and paste this link over there. So it's 20, so it's 8:33. We will start at 8:37. I'll start the quiz. At 8:37 I'll start the quiz. So guys, please join fast. And if you are facing any doubt, any query, let me know in the comment section. Ayush Gupta has joined with two IDs, so Ayush, that won't be, yeah, that will increase your chance of winning. But yeah, okay, that's fine. You are using two IDs, that's fine, guys. So guys, join quickly because we have 72 people watching and only 31 has joined. So it's nearly half of people you have joined. So I'll encourage, if you have any doubt, any query, just let me know in the comment section, guys, why you are facing any issues. If you are facing any issues, okay, the number is increasing. Okay. So yeah, now let's start the quiz. And okay, so I'm starting the quiz, guys. So let's start the quiz. So this is the first question that is coming to your screen. You will get 15 seconds for each question. Which of the following is not a type of cloud server? Public cloud servers, private cloud servers, dedicated cloud servers, merged cloud servers. Which of the following is not a type of cloud server? So maximum, so 30, so it's like a nearly two-way thing. So 30% has gone with public and 35% has gone with dedicated cloud servers. Let's see what's the answer. Okay, only 20% people are right. The MERS cloud server. There is nothing called MERS cloud server. Dedicated. So if I'll just quickly explain, dedicated cloud servers are there. So suppose if if Amazon needs to book some cloud servers, if I have to reserve some cloud servers from 6 months before or 1 year before, I can dedicate those servers as a administrator to Amazon only. So dedicated cloud servers are always there. This is asking not a type of cloud server. So I'll encourage to read the question carefully. So Himanshu Rai is the guy who has answered the question correctly. Next is, which of the following are the features of cloud computing? Security, availability, large network access, all of the mentioned. Let's see. So guys, you need to answer as quick as possible. If you will answer in 1 second, your leaderboard will increase. If you are answer at the last second, at the 40th second, then your leaderboard will decrease. So just make sure you answer as quick as possible. Okay, 81% has gone with all of the mentioned. So let's see what's the answer. Yes, 81% people are right. 81% people are right. And let's see next thing. So then we have on the question right over here. Which of the following type is a cloud computing service? Is a type of cloud computing service? Okay, software as a service, software as a server. Okay, it's 54% has gone with the third answer. Let's see what's the right answer. Yes, 54% people are right. And let's see how the leaderboard decides. Okay, Ayush Gupta is at first by answering three questions. So if you will see, seconds, the timings also matter, right? So please answer as quick as possible. Let's go to the next question. So next question is on your screen now. Which of the following is the application of cloud computing? Adobe, PayPal, Google G Suite, all of the above. So let's see how many of you have answered right. Okay, 19% gone with Adobe, 26% thinks it's Google G Suite, and 53% gone with all of the. Let's see. Yes, all of the above is the right answer because everyone uses the cloud computing, right? Okay, Kaushal. Now, okay, many maybe these people, because this has been tremendous. Now Kaushal is as the top, so the leader has been changed exponentially right now. Which of the following is not a property of cloud computing? Virtualization, composability, scalability, all of the mentioned is not a property. Guys, please read the question carefully. Is not a property of cloud computing. So composability is the right answer. So now Himanshu Rai is at the first. Now this is the one of the most basic question coming to your screen. Full form of TCP. Guys, I want, okay, I never expected this to be a win-win situation for you guys. Transmission control protocol or transfer control protocol. Why there is so much confusion, guys? It is absolutely transmission control protocol. This is the one of the most basic question of that can be asked in a quiz. Okay, so I you must answer this question. And Himanshu Rai, kudos to you because you have answered all the six questions right. Now you have the most chances of winning. Choose a correct relationship of cloud servers services to customers. So assume if I'm a clouds, if I provide the cloud services and you are the customer, then who is handling this? Like it is a one to one to many to one, or many to many. Okay, 57% people has gone with one to many. Yes, that's the right answer. And okay, Himanshu Rai is still leading the leaderboard. Let's see. State whether true or false. Is Google Docs a type of cloud computing? True or false? Again, very simple, very simple. I want 100% of you to answer this correctly because this is one of the basic question, one of the most simplest question you can ever get. Okay, I don't want this 14%, guys who are sitting at this 14%. I'm a little bit unsure. Okay, so yeah, true. Google Docs is a type of cloud computing, definitely. So Himanshu Rai is still leading the leaderboard, and let's see. Next question come to your screen. Choose to balance load. DNS is a network resource. True or false? Let's see. Okay, 79% has answered it true. Let's see. Okay, yeah, true is the right answer. And again, Himanshu Rai is leading the leaderboard. And the last question come to your screen. This is the last chance for you to increase the leaderboard. Choose among the following option which on which utility computing is based. Virtual isolation model, pay-as-you-go model, grid computing, and SOA. On which utility computing is cloud model supports? Pay-as-you-go model, virtual isolation model, grid computing, or SOA? Okay, again there is a confusion. People are confused between virtual isolation model and pay-as-you-go model. The right answer is again pay-as-you-go model. Cloud computing support pay-as-you-go model. So you pay for only what you use. So this is about the cloud computing concept. So congratulations to Himanshu Rai, Prachi Gupta, and Yash Patak for leading the leaderboard. I'll quickly take a snapshot of your screen. of this. You guys won the, and thank you guys. Thank you for joining in. And this is about today's session. And I hope you enjoyed the quiz. And I hope you enjoyed the session as well. So thank you guys for joining in. And again, see you then for next session. And I hope you have filled the Google form. So this is the attendance form link that you need to fill. So please fill the attendance form link, and I'm closing the attendance form now. So those who haven't filled, I'm closing the attendance form. So now it won't be accepting any responses. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining, and have a great evening, guys. Bye bye. Yeah. Yeah, congratulations, Himanshu, for winning the quiz and especially answering every question right. So because he has won the quiz as well as he has answered every question right. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining in. Have a nice day. Thank you guys. Bye bye.